Good morning, everyone. This is working group 2 during that is held in Debrecen, Hungary, and we are making a round of the table with all the participants. Please, Maria, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello, I'm Alex Vetter from the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki. I hope you have a wonderful meeting. I am interested in the new uses of the big data. Specifically, I'm interested in using this data for upscaling assessment, soil ecological assessment. So this data can give us very good and detailed approach of vegetation and markup habitats and how the landscape is really structured to the fine scale. And this can help to upscale the soil ecological assessment of an area. So this combining this information will be very useful for future monitoring of soil ecological properties.
Okay. So thank you so much. And unfortunately, the sound was not excellent. I honestly would avoid making a second presentation of the locals participants because we already had in early morning, and I will just ask the online participants eventually to provide a self presentation to let us know who's participating, who's joining the meeting. I see now that we have Juan Manuel joining the meeting. Good morning. Can you introduce yourself just to allow us to know the partnership that we have in this meeting? And we know most of your interests because we had already Francisco giving a presentation. So please introduce yourself.
Okay. Can you listen me? Right?
Fine.
Okay. Good morning. Sorry for my delay. I was in classes. Okay. My name is Juan Manuel. I'm from Jaén, Spain, and now I'm a professor at the University of Granada. Okay. And well, in order to give you a brief description of my recent research, this is focused on monitoring different olive tree plantations and forests using hyperspectral, thermal, and multispectral sensors. As you know, if we have discussed before about this topic, my interests are related to combine multi-sensor information in a 3D space. I am making efforts to develop novel algorithms in order to join thermal information, hyperspectral data on the 3D geometry that can be directly modeled using LiDAR systems or photogrammetric techniques. And that's all. If you have any question about something,
It's fine. We have the last but not least because he's chairing he's leading the working group 2 is Antonino Maltese from University of Palermo.
Hello. Good
Uh,
morning, everyone.
so you can probably introduce yourself. I can I suspect you are at the university, right?
Yes, just finishing lecturing. few minutes ago.
Okay,
Very
So-
busy period. Okay. So my name is Antonino Maltese. I'm from University of Palermo, and I work in remote sensing, mainly for energy balance and soil moisture. Most of my experience on these two topics, and I was leading this working group in the last years. And now we are at the end of the project, so I don't know which is the plan for today. Salvatore, could you give some indication?
So we discussed it at the beginning. So we have these working groups are organized in very short term. So we have half an hour, 1 hour and a half to discuss about achievements. So it would be good to introduce what have been achieved in terms of scientific achievements by the working group in few minutes, and we are trying to stimulate the participants to identify the future challenges that exist in this specific context. So we are talking now about vegetation monitoring. So what is a challenge for the working group that is worthy to go for and investigate first of all? Secondarily, but of course not, it's not secondary in terms of importance, but it might be the opportunity or the call that can give us the opportunity to tackle this future challenge. So essentially, we will replicate this exercise tomorrow, but we will have a discussion that will try to summarize all the input that we have received from the working group and to put forward the initiatives or potential initiatives that we can build for the coming year, essentially, because we do have some activities that have been clearly identified, or some initiatives that are already ongoing or have been submitted. But of course, we would like to involve all members in the coming future in order to keep this connection active, since from my perspective it has been very useful and enriching experience. And in this consideration, probably the best thing to do is to start from what has been done and how it could be improved, and what are the potential scientific questions for the next future that are of interest for us as a working group too, for the participants. So essentially, what I would suggest is to have a short discussion among members on this specific topic. I solicitate a bit leaders to provide their vision, starting from achievements and putting this in perspective. Then we move around the table.
Okay. So this vegetation group is quite various and heterogeneous. This working group. There are a lot of application on vegetation. And that's why in the first part of the project we decided to have sort of two subgroups with people, researchers working on natural vegetation, and other working on agricultural vegetation. The aim could be different. Of course, most of the techniques we are using now with UAV come from satellite and airborne remote sensing. And most of the techniques are already mature enough to be applied on an operational context if using satellite data. And that's why we have a lot of products already available from Copernicus, like downstream services. So, in my opinion, the question is how to transfer these techniques to UAV that come with very high spatial resolution. We have the possibility to acquire images at time we want in order to highlight the differences and in order to achieve particular
Sorry if I interrupt you. What do you mean? How to transfer this information to who?
from airborne application to UAV application, from airborne or satellite to UAV application. In my opinion, it's not a matter of what kind of data you use. If you use exactly the same technique that has been already applied on satellite data, and you use exactly the same technique on UAV data, what is the advancement of the research? Okay, we need to identify which are the opportunity and which are the differences that come from UAV images in order to propose something that is different from satellite technique. I mean, in this sense, we could rely on spatial resolution, for instance. We have a spatial resolution that is much higher than those achievable from satellite. The spatial resolution give some new information or is a noise for the modeling that we made of the phenomenon. And the same is about the acquisition time. There are several techniques that cannot be applied on satellite data, and these techniques could be applied on UAV data because we can decide the moment of acquisition. So, in my opinion, we should try to transfer also the techniques that have been already set up for satellite images to UAV, taking advantages of the peculiarities of UAV in terms of spatial resolution, in terms of temporal, the time of acquisition. In terms of spectral resolution as well, we can decide which are the spectral bands that we need to acquire. Of course, it is required to have a sensor, but we can decide also the spectral band. With satellite images, that you don't have this choice. You have to use the images that are acquired at a given time, because it depends on the orbit, at a given spatial resolution, and with that with those spectral bands. So in my opinion, the main research advance would come from transferring the techniques that are already major in satellite with the satellite application to UAV application, but taking advantages of UAV peculiarities. So I don't know.
May I add something,
Hey, Giuseppe.
Yeah, I'm here. Okay.
Eccoli qua.
Just another point of view is also to use the UAV acquisition, okay, as a complementary. I mean, integrate system with the satellite acquisition. So you have to be reminded. Sometimes you need to change scale and to have a wider picture of the problem and go inside from some place. But also use the UAV retrievement as calibration of satellite system. So this can be another point of view also. Just this.
So do you mean as for testing the technique, Giuseppe,
Yes.
or
Yes.
for integrating the data?
Integrating.
So we are talking about, for instance, scaling issues.
Yes.
How the phenomenon can be interpreted with different spatial resolution.
Yeah, because sometimes you need to monitor a large area, and then with the UAV you cannot cover everything, but you can use some insight as a specific comparison also. Okay. Imagine the problem of in surface energy balance for the evapotranspiration, no?
Yeah.
So okay. This is one of the possibilities. So if you need the thermal is in this moment 100 meters, but with the UAV you can have an insight of some place and then study which is the heterogeneity disposition of vegetation soil in your assessment.
Yes, but at the same time, it could be that the modeling that you are using of the phenomenon, for example, the energy balance you are referring to, maybe is not enough to describe the behavior of single leaves.
Yes, I know.
Okay. Sometimes the modeling is fine for a lower spatial resolution because you are modeling the behavior of the vegetation in a wall, not of single leaves. And in this case, the only option is to use a more, how to say, sophisticated modeling. If
connection problems. Okay.
Is our connection or is this connection?
Compared to the one.
Nino, there is some problem with Spectrum.
I asked him to record.
Yeah, okay.
Can someone else talk just to understand if it is our problem in the internet or admin's? Can someone hear us? Okay, nice. Better.
Hello? Hello?
But it's intermittent. Okay, we can hear you now.
Yes, I'm using the Wi-Fi. Maybe that is the problem. So for sure, the UAV gives us the opportunity to test a lot of things that we cannot do using satellite images. In terms of spatial resolution, time of acquisition, and so on. So it's a great tool for research purposes. Actually, I don't know how many of these output can be transferred to an operational constant, operational context. Because of course you have limited area that can be covered by UAV. But the technology is moving toward hyperspectral, is moving toward very high spatial resolution also from satellite. So our aim is to test with some time of advance in comparison of what we will do in the future also with the satellites, with satellite images.
Okay, sounds good. I think that trying to summarize, you suggesting somehow as a topic the coupled use of satellite joining with the US for both calibration and improvements of US observations. No?
Generally,
Yes.
not only the US observation, but in general.
Also satellite.
Imagine you are
Let's say improving Earth observation with the combined use of satellite and US.
Yeah.
Yes, we could give you also some the direction, or maybe is too ambitious as aim, but we could give also some indication on how should be the future generation satellite in order to map and characterize the landscape in some way. I meaning the work on thermal inertia that we have done within this action is something that can be done also with the satellite images. Right now, actually no, because you don't have thermal images at good spatial resolution in order to apply this kind of method on agricultural area. Okay, so maybe an indication could be also to acquire and store the thermal images of Landsat that are acquired but never stored in order to be able to apply this kind of methodology also from satellite. So we can give an indication on what should be the characteristic, the spectral, temporal, and the spatial characteristic of future generation satellites.
Okay.
Maybe something that looks too ambitious, but is something that we can propose as an output of our research. Okay.
Okay. Just to clarify, I've seen that Jana is willing to talk, and I was going to give her the word. And consider that I've seen Steen joined us just a few minutes ago. The discussion is about achievements of the working group and potential future achievements. In this, I think that Jana has a nice perspective and a nice observatory, because she went through a questionnaire that was done during the Harmonious construction, and it was posing a clear question about opportunities in the use of US, and there are some interesting suggestions in this question that we can use for the discussion and as an input in this direction. So, Jana, what's your point of view?
Yeah, I think you're perfectly right, and I think Antonino really hit the point. I would just add maybe that I think one of the challenges that is ahead of us is the changing the mind, changing the paradigm, that we really see different things with drones as compared to satellite or field data, and we still tend to sort of compare and think that it's just a nanotechnology that would add to those that we already have. But maybe the resolution that we have and the spatial extent that we have is allow us to see different or assess different parameters that we could not assess in this extent before. So we are able to measure a lot of things on the ground, but these are point measurements. Usually they are not raster measurements and in space. And now we have a data that can in some ways be used with a similar detail, with a similar spatial resolution, but also with the spatial extent. So it's continuous coverage of the information. And we have to sort of find the variables, look for the new variables that could be used, could be assessed by this technology. And I think this is the most challenging part of, and this is what we could think about, all of us, how to use the novel approaches of using the technology, or the novel, um, yeah, uh, novel approaches, I would say. Yeah.
Do you have a better connection now, Jana?
You can hear me? Can you hear me now? Sorry.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Do you have? Can you just remind us, just to refresh our minds, what have been, according to our questioners, our question? What are the key open questions that have been identified by our participants?
I think there's a lot of technical issues that are, but I would think that these are these going to be solved soon, sooner or later, with a technological advancement. But there are also some conceptual issues on, for example, a link between the field and the drone measurements, and about the concept, or how to transfer technology to practice, but also how to approach the variables in the field with the drones. And I think these concepts are the most important to bear in mind on how to actually assess the variables in a new way. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes,
No.
Yeah.
yes.
It's
Okay. Good.
totally clear.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think this is what is ahead of us, like us as a plant ecologist, or I don't know, vegetation people would say,
Vegetation
to,
people.
to, to think about to think about the new ways to use the technology, and the new parameters that we could assess a different way, not only comparing all the time the field derived variables with and the remote sensing derived variables and the drones, but also to see that they can be different. And they might not be more or less accurate, they might be just different. They might open a different part of heterogeneity that we are interested in.
So we are talking about new variables.
Yeah, maybe, or yeah, sort of new variables, or the variables that were not assessed before. Or if you if you study some variable that is measured on the ground, and then you get the drone data, you tend to sort of compare how accurate is the maybe it's just a different component of the same variable. Maybe it's not that one
You're
is
saying that
better than the other. Yeah.
there is it is impossible sometimes to provide just a comparison, or we
Yeah.
should change a paradigm in this
Yes,
context.
exactly. Yeah.
But I mean, this is an interesting point. But how we tackle an issue like this?
Yeah, this is a challenge. Have to change the setup of our minds, probably. But I think the same challenge came with the remote sensing when the first satellites came in. That there was the same challenge that people always were used to assess all the variables on the ground in the field, measure everything with the instruments, and then now they had this satellite data, and then they didn't know what to do with it. And
Like
later on they got used to using this satellite data and having like a understanding that you see something else from the satellite and you see from the ground, and now we have to again get used to the different point of different view with this crazy detail resolution, but still from a distance, not from the ground.
It is what is happening right now with the hyperspectral images, actually. So we are not talking about very high spatial resolution, but very high spectral
Yeah, okay, yeah,
resolution.
it's the same.
There
Yeah,
are
same
a lot
point, you're
of
right. Yeah.
new characteristics, features within the images that we are trying to identify. Okay, there are a lot of maybe new variables that can be mapped via hyperspectral. So maybe this is something that is a sort of parallelism between the evolution of the satellite sensors with the evolution of UAV and very light sensors on board the RV.
Yeah, it's like if you consider, for example, NDVI, it's like when it first was introduced, all the field physiologists or they were saying like, what is it? It's like measurement of photosynthesis. How would you relate it to the ground measurements? And it's not directly related. It says something about the health of vegetation, but it's not exactly the same as if you measure it from the ground. It's something else. So this is the same, I think, that you see the same thing. You see the how healthy is vegetation, but you see it by a different way. NDVI is definitely different than from when you measure it on the ground, and it would be the same for the drones when we can, like for example, make new indices or make new variables that would be linked to those that we measure on the ground, but they are not. The link is not like linear. It can be not cannot be, maybe it's not a direct link, maybe it's a little bit indirect, and we have to understand those links. It's like, for example, now the concept of detect or of assessing biodiversity using spectral variation. So it's a similar thing, like using a different concept of the same thing, like biodiversity typically measured on the ground, counting the species, but now we have spectral diversity and we can see some part of this biodiversity, maybe not exactly the same as if you count the species, but it's also some expression of biodiversity, of course.
Can I also, regarding
No,
biodiversity?
yes, just a moment. I think this is an interesting point. It's a new perspective. It's a bit hard to put in a frame of a scientific method. So let's try to think about how to frame this idea in a scientific methodology in order to test it, to replicate the test, validate it. So Martinez, yes, there is Martina talking. So probably you can see it in him in the
maybe
camera.
here.
Okay.
Yeah. Regarding framing, I think that this habitat directive is one of such frames where we could develop. Now, satellites are already been, for example, suggested as a tool for mapping water quality in large scales, water bodies, for example. So now I think our UV's application in monitoring biodiversity, monitoring water quality, or other habitat mapping, let's say, would be a very good point to lay down where is the UV's, how to say, place, and which parameters we could cover, especially regarding habitat changes, habitat monitoring, in the frame of our maybe further development of the project. So I think it's very
UAV for habitat,
habitat
of
parameters that new parameters that could be covered. For example, extent of habitat. Yes. So we have let's say macrophyte habitat, which is necessary to cover extent according to the directive, and it can be done only by remote sensing methods.
UV for habitat assessment.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Как обычно выучить.
So it is, I think, where we could apply and further develop this.
Okay. Okay, it seems we are going into a clear direction. So there are other comments regarding this.
Ma Salvatore, I was thinking about other sensors that right now are not used with UAV. For example, there is a limited use of LiDAR, even though there are a lot of LiDAR sensors that are can be light enough to be used on drones. But in what is my knowledge is that very few or no radar sensor for UAV. This is something that we should consider. There are a lot of applications that has been set up during the years in satellite remote sensing, and no one of these can be transferred to UAV because we have no radar that are light enough to be carried comparable, how to say, not light enough to be carried out on a drone. So maybe we should also start looking at these new sensors in order to widen the application that we can do from UAV. So it's something that is related to the technology advances, but it was like in the past. Now some sensors were not available and now are available, and this can widen our application by UAV.
Okay, this is something that returns to the table because it was discussed also in working group 1, no? Essentially. Fine. We had also a discussion this morning about potential costs. And of course, it's identify the right one for our interest. It's critical because we were discussing with Gernot this morning and with Sorin as well that cost offers a great advantage. It is true that there is no money for students or for staff, So we are limited in this direction, but we have the freedom to sustain our mobility and the mobility of our students, which is extremely useful, especially as we are doing right now, because many of our activities are also supported by other projects. Now, the one issue could be to then identify the right funding opportunity among the available ones. I'm aware of several calls that are ongoing. I said this morning that we are now preparing a proposal on building an infrastructure, joining with the UFA and other members like some private company. And in this, the Harmonious Network may provide in the next future some support in US observation on the voluntary base with some economical support for the expenses. This could be, and it will be one direction to go, and it is already something that we are taking as an opportunity. But in addition to that, there might be other options. As I said this morning, that could be at the European level, at the transnational level, or at the national level. Of course, any of those opportunities are of interest for the action and should be promoted in all possible ways. And it might be good to identify those and to report those, even if they are supporting individual projects. So consider that we have a big group of participants. I would like to stimulate this the second part of the talk about opportunities that you consider of interest for the next future. We have a disadvantage that becomes, in my perspective, an advantage. That is the suspension that we have for all Horizon calls that give us a bit more of time for proposal preparation. Also, other calls at the EU base have been postponed, and this means that we can study better the calls and try to take the best opportunity for the next future. So in this direction, I would like just to mention you a couple of things that we discussed this morning that could be considered. One has been the Erasmus Plus. The other one is Marie Curie Action, which could be an opportunity. It's nice because the Marie Curie offers different options that range from the individual funding for researcher, but also option for staff mobility. And there is another one that I may forget. Okay, the third one is new cost call, the new cost call that is ongoing, which is also an opportunity. And last but not least, we do have Horizon. So I mean, there are many others that will be discussed also in the afternoon. But for me, it's interesting to understand what is, in your opinion, the most profitable one according to the aim of the call and our interests as a group.
So the cost action is already, the new call of cost action is already open.
Yes, it's open and it will be closed next October. So for that, we are on the perfect timing right now. If we would like to consider a second application, this is a decision that we should take between today and tomorrow. This is the biggest one of the open questions. Okay, in this regard we can try. I don't know if there are comments about this.
ERC is very high level, but if there is a very there is a research that is very much forefront, that it can be really flexible. But for this very strong,
Very competitive, yeah.
very
Yes.
I don't know. One because then it
Yeah.
I mean, the ERC, I think, is the most, I know, is flexible, it's good.
Sorry, Salvatore, the volume was really low. I
No,
don't
no,
know
no.
the others, but
It's a bit far from the microphone, and she doesn't have a loud voice by nature, so it's very gentle and doesn't want to disturb what is fine. No,
so could you summarize the question,
no,
please?
she can just come a bit closer to the microphone.
So I just mentioned the ERC possibility, that this is really challenging because maybe it is the most difficult one, but can be successful. But if someone is there from the drone community who is really an outstanding researcher, then a group can be built around him or her, and then it really provides flexibility. Usually anything can be done if it has a great novelty.
Yeah, the question, so essentially the ERC will be fantastic. It's a matter of fact. Is really the ideal funding because, for instance, in Horizon Europe, we do have a lot of restriction and limitations in activities, in the budgeting, and so on. So it's a good frame, but sometimes even if you have a lot of money, it seems that you don't have a lot of freedom and a lot of activities that can be done. For instance, basically experiencing the Horizon preparation, you immediately realize that the costs associated to postdocs that generally are funded sometimes are extremely high. So they absorb a lot of the budget and limiting the number of activities that you could program. In the ERC, instead, you have a lot more of flexibility. You can support partners in different ways, supporting their traveling and so on. So it is certainly more flexible from the budgeting point of view. The main objective of VRC is to target high quality research in general. So good scientists and extremely innovative research questions. So, of course, in this case, the research question becomes the main issue.
Mhm.
And Salvatore, about this action, do we have any residual fund available or not?
To be honest, I don't know. It has been quite challenging trying to understand how much budget we had, because we've been able to spend the money only on the last part of the period, which means that we have a fair estimate that we did with Laszlo, honestly. So I have the suspect that we don't. So, but I might have a better idea
next week.
Yeah, maybe even not. There might be some budget. Why you're asking?
Because do you remember our proposal some time ago, a couple of months ago, was to have another campaign in Sicily, and now we are all together. So if we have any residual fund, maybe you can invite the colleagues from the working group. But it's something that we can see next week if it's possible or not.
No. It's something we could consider, but I suspect that the if there is any budget, it will be very limited. So I don't know how much it might be. According to my personal computation, we are at the limit. So probably we have spent most of it. Of course. You never know in the reality, because reimbursement requests arrive always after the activities. So I have some estimates about what is available. Maybe there is a small amount left. I have no idea what are today, and but we can make some computation with Laszlo about how many are participants that have been physically here and will ask for a reimbursement. It's something we can try to do, and we have to do it, of course. If there is any budget left, we can include this as an option. What I will try to do is for tomorrow, that during the MC, I will project the final estimates of the budgeting, just to clarify the situation, and we can easily decide what can be done.
Okay.
I kept on hold Maria for a while, because she was willing to make virtual mobility, and we
Okay.
are not aware of the available budget, because at the beginning the expectation for the expenses of this meeting was much higher. Then a lot of people preferred to stay online, and this may have saved something, which is not totally clear how much is it. But I can try to make some relatively reliable estimate on this.
Okay.
So just in case, what do you have in mind?
I have in mind to repeat something similar we have done in on the Sele Plain, but on the orchard we have in Sicily. And I would like to remind all the members of the working group that those data are available for everyone who would request it. So not my data, are the data of the working group. So if someone of you would like to do some research of the data, those are available for everyone who would request.
I mean, I expect that this data will go in a repository with the book, right, Giuseppe?
Yes, I think
Of the book?
yeah.
Because in the book, the chapter on data and tools for UIS contains some reference to public repositories.
Yes.
I found already published data, but this one not published yet. So
And
we can try to do.
Okay.
the data we used in the book are just one acquisition and one flight during the day. We have more data that can be shared with the colleagues if they want. We put all the data on a drive in case. Maybe are not ordered and perfectly with the metadata right now, but these are available from my point of view. The data of the working group, not ours one.
Okay. So, this is fine. So even one acquisition is fine because
Yeah, okay.
it's intended to be provide tutorials and example of applications. So we don't need to provide a full set of data of an entire experiment. A few examples will be more than enough. Just to close, because we have 10 minutes left, and to summarize the ideas. So I didn't receive from the group any input about the potential calls. So if there are inputs, Isabel, okay, you are willing to say something. Go ahead.
Well, just want to say that in my view, indeed, this action was extremely successful, due, of course, to your big effort in keeping the group involved in all different activities. So for me, that would be very good if we would have the possibility to keep on going with a similar network. And if the cost action will do the job, then that I think is very good. I'm positive about it, so.
Thanks, Isabel.
Do you have a specific interest?
Sorry, in my view, what do you mean? No, well, I think all the issues that were discussed a little bit earlier, they all are around the same idea of continuation, say, in a given way, of the work that has already been done, and it was the scope of this action. I mean, not a particular proposal, if that's what you mean exactly.
So the issue were the transferability from satellite, the techniques from satellite to RV, the scaling issues that highlighted Giuseppe, the new variables that can be mapped from UAV, from Yana, maybe also the use of new sensors on UAV, and then we had the discussion of any funding opportunity and the residual fund from the action. That right, Salvatore? No?
Yeah.
Okay, so essentially the main input, trying to summarize, the main inputs of the meeting of today are essentially the potential topics of interest, which are potentially the combined use of satellite and UAS for Earth observation, providing transferability and of information and downscaling procedures, and also validation of the data from both sides. It might be validation of satellite and validation or improvement of the quality of the UAS observations. At the same time, it seems to me intriguing, I would say, the idea of Jana about the introduction of a new paradigm for ecosystem observations, which might be something that could be further developed. So in the coming hours, if Martinez, you, Jana, and the group Maria also could come up with a better frame of this idea, we could discuss this tomorrow further in details, how this could be framed in perspective of a general project. For the specific, there is a common suggestion. A common suggestion in this working group, that is the combined use of different sensors, and in this Juan Manuel may certainly help in identifying what are the problems, the open problems in this context, and open questions, because you do have some experience in this. So if you want to provide some comment in this, it would be very useful.
Well, okay, I agree that main problems to integrate multi-source information is to determine a similar spatial resolution. But I think also that for the time being, according to the state-of-the-art methods, we can use different proposals in order to fuse data coming from UAV sensors such as thermal, multispectral, and even hyperspectral sensors, cameras. Nowadays, I think that maybe one of the main challenging tasks is, for example, the recognition of different artificial and natural materials in the wild and even in urban scenarios. And this topic now is studied by my group. And according to our expertise in modeling, for example, the BRDF, now we use UAV sensor. Specifically, we use hyperspectral sensor in order to cover target materials at different times over the day. So I think that, okay, if you aim to validate, for example, satellite information according to UAV data, you have to focus on how you are going to integrate on the same system information both data which are initially captured with a high difference between according to the spatial resolution. This is my opinion about this topic, and according to my recent developments, for example, I can provide you a software that we use usually for the integration of these multi-source data with point clouds, for example. And I think that we don't we should focus on fusing geometric data and spectral data. Don't forget that the geometry has an important influence on remote sensing observation, and the reconstruction of the object surfaces is too important in order to correct other phenomena that are directly related to remote sensing monitoring. That's my point.
No, okay, sounds good. And I mean, it's consistent with what we are suggesting. The fusion of different data is maybe beneficial if we take advantage of the information that we can retrieve, which is clearly one issue. Okay, I think we have used all our time for the meeting. It was extremely useful, so thank you everyone. I don't know if you, Antonino or Jana, are willing to say something before closure.
No. Thank you everyone for participating, and was a great experience from my point of view. And the network of researchers come always with a new idea, and I think was useful for each of us. Our knowledge was improved during this year, and also a new way to look at the data, and a new idea come from the network between researchers. So it was a great experience. So I would like to thank all of you.
Okay, thank you. Jana?
Yeah, if I can say something, if
Go ahead.
you can hear me, yeah, it was very great.
I cannot hear very well.
Yeah, we cannot hear you.
Jana, we have some connection problem. Eventually, if you want, you can write
You
something.
made a nice relation.
No, we didn't hear you very well. Can you repeat?
Relationships with people that are going to continue for longer, I'm sure. And
Sorry, Jana, we couldn't hear you. Can you repeat?
I think he doesn't have a good connection.
Yeah, connection issues. Yeah, connection is not.
It's okay. So I'm sorry for missing the words of Jana. So then I think I have to thank you all for participating. We gonna continue this round of interaction with COST members with the other two working groups. We have in the afternoon. This Maria that is posting something. Okay, thank you. I will save this for our MC. Try to summarize everything in the MC. So thank you so much, and I think we, if you are willing to participate in the activities of Working Group 3, you are obviously welcome as a COST members. As well as Working Group 4 that is afterward. We will restart the activities, if I'm not wrong, at 2 o'clock. So see you later on if you will join. Otherwise, have a good
afternoon. Bye bye.
Okay.